This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello everyone and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host Mike Parkin and joining me tonight is Richard Hawes.
Hello everyone.
This week we have 5 new films to discuss. We're going to kick off with Terence Howard in Showdown at the Grand, also featuring a certain Dolph Lundgren. Then we have Mercy Falls, set in Scotland, Evie, which is set, I don't know, somewhere in England, WEREWOLF Santa, which is definitely set in Hastings, and then Muzzle over in Skid Row in Los Angeles. Our short shot this week is Unleashed, and our DTV throwback finds us in space with Hellraiser Bloodline. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Showdown at the Grand. A proud movie theatre owner must defend his family business from corporate developers alongside a legendary action star as art imitates life in a showdown for the ages. Here we are in November, Rich, and I, starting to put together my sort of top 10, bottom 5 list for the end of the year already, starting to compile it, and along comes a film which definitely deserves to be in that top 10 as far as I'm concerned. I had no idea what this film was going to be putting it in. I had my worries that it was going to be, I don't know, some sort of Tarantino-esque horror. It wasn't a horror thing, but just a horrible mess, basically, and the way it starts off, I was like, well, this is weird. And then I clicked before you hear the laughter that what we were watching was a clip from a film, an 80s film. I did like the caption that comes up saying New York. It was a 2025 New York, and it's literally a one-horse Western town. I thought that was very good. And we got Dolph Lundgren in fine form in this, playing multiple parts, playing the same character, but in multiple movies. So I thought it was very, very good. Terence Howard, of course, owner of the the Grand Theatre. It's on its last legs, but he's a proud guy. He wants to hold on to it. He wants to hold this event, bringing back the star of these 80s thrillers. It has some classic beats to it. The corporate muscle trying to push him out of business and all this sort of stuff. I just thought it was a joy to watch. How did you find this one?
Yeah, I really liked it as well. I thought it was really a good, solid production value. Terence Howard's fantastic in the lead. He's just got so much gravitas and cool, I guess. He's just really he's very engaging. He's very well dressed as well. The costume department did a really good job with the film, and because he likes to dress as kind of a cowboy in a lot of his scenes, and there's a bit where he's got a really nice suit and stuff. He's kind of it's kind of an not Rio Bravo. It's that kind of Western kind of thing that they're going for. Is like he is like the sort of the sheriff in instead of like a jail. He's not a sort of guarding the jail. He's looking after the theatre and trying to take on these people coming in. And it does do all the stuff you kind of expect this sort of thing to do, but it does it with a twist. I think it's a bit novel. There is definitely a Tarantino-ish sort of flourish to a lot of it, but it's not sort of beholden to it. I mean, you look at the poster, the whole idea of the cinema and the sword, using the swords and everything, and some of the visuals, the whole, even the retro film clips and stuff. There's a lot of sort of Tarantino grindhouse all sort of elements in there.
There is that element of like, you know, what we see in the you know, the trailer part of Grindhouse, for example.
Yeah.
There is certainly an element of that.
But it's also one of these kind of fighting back against the you know, the sort of overwhelming powers. Sort of, you know, in the old, you know, like the sort of 80s, they'd have this the little guy fights back against the property developer kind of
all that
story.
sort of stuff. Yeah.
And there's elements of that
That's
in
exactly
here.
what it is. That's exactly what it is, isn't it? I mean, it's really good. The sort of main bad guy in this is played by Amanda Rigetti, who, if you're a fan of the series The Mentalist, you'll be very familiar with her work. She was one of the main characters in that series. And she's, you know, she's great in this. I thought, just really sort of calm, cool, and collected sort of thing. You know, she doesn't yell, doesn't monologue or anything really. You know, she's just like menacing. I just thought it was really good.
Yeah, and she's got this kind of I mean, it's quite. I think the budget was quite limited, but they got every time they go to where she is, she's like in this kind of
it's
almost like she's waiting in a corridor for this big place. It's all very white and there's stuff on the wall, but it seems like it's almost like a walkway. But she's always there. She seems to be just sort of waiting there. I'm guessing it's supposed to be her office.
Yeah, it's minimalist, but at the same time, it looks very classy at the same time.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, and she's it's quite interesting because she's got these kind of thugs, these two guys who are sort of doing her dirty work for her, and they, you know, they're very much, it's cartoonish, you know, it's that kind of the Joker and his goons kind of thing, whereas she's quite refined, and there's, you know, this guy with loads of tattoos on his face who's actually I believe he's kind of a tattooist who became an actor, and he's got absolutely tons and tons of credits now. I think, I can't remember, his name was Mike Ferguson. But yeah, so him and the other guy, who's also kind of, again, the same kind of character you expect, but with a bit of a twist. He's got this sort of, he looks like an accountant or something, and he's got like this sort of wispy, you know, hair. He's a bit older. He's got this moustache and stuff. He looks like a bit of a waster, but he's also this completely psychotic right-hand man kind of character who's, you know, toys with Fuller, played by Howard, and the rest of the cast, who, while Ferguson as Reed is kind of the not stoic, but he's more of the sort of sensible muscle kind of character. So he's kind of the muscle, but he's clearly an intelligent guy, and you know, so it's all that we're seeing very familiar kind of characterizations, but in a slightly different way. And I think that also extends to Dolph Lundgren as well, who is cast as the movie star Claude Luke Halliday, who I'm convinced was probably written for Jean-Claude Van Damme because of the Claude and Luke being, I presume, is a reference to Luke Devereaux, and the Halliday, I think, is a reference to is it Johnny Halliday? Johnny Halliday,
French actor,
the French singer and actor who did the Johnny Toe film that I keep meaning to see.
Yeah, Revenge. Vengeance.
That was it.
Very good.
So yeah, and I think this is, you know, this film gives Dolph quite a really interesting character to play, because he kind of gets to do the stuff that he's known for, the kind of standard action stuff, but they give him a bit of dramatic stuff to do as well. He's so it's sort of leaning into sort of more parody, but playing it very straight. But he's also a kind of you know, it's a proper character where he's a guy who's aging. He's a bit distanced from reality, and also from his fame and stuff. He's kind of
disappeared in Estonia or somewhere, isn't he?
Yeah, he's kind of in his own, which again I think is kind of the Jean-Claude Van Damme kind of thing of, you know, he kind of lives in his own little world, and he's always sort of saying, you know, he comes out with weird stuff, and you know, he's sort of stream of consciousness kind of stuff coming out of his head, and he's a bit of I don't like to use the term has been, but he's not where he once was, and he kind of doesn't really know where his place in the world is anymore.
He sort of turned his back on the action scene, didn't he? And sort of went off, did his own thing. And it's really Terence Howard's character who sort of like dragged him back.
Yes.
You know, and sort of got him to do this appearance for this marathon.
And they get some nice scenes because, say, Dolph is kind of brought out in front of this crowd, and he's like really nervous and uncertain about it, and then he tries to do a kick, and it doesn't go very well and stuff. And so it's really interesting because it's not the sort of thing we see Dolph do normally. And I wouldn't say he's not playing comedy. There's comic elements to it, but I think it's a more dramatic role with elements of action. He still gets to do. He gets to do a cool scene with a motorbike and stuff, which brought to mind Command Performance. There's an element of that in there, but it's got different things for Dolph fans. I think the only thing I do think he's undermined by the wigs.
I like the wigs.
Oh, you like the wigs? Yeah,
I like the wigs.
I thought the wigs just threw me too much, and they're just so obviously. I don't know what they were going. Yeah, I don't know what they were going for there.
Maybe early Seagal or something.
Yeah, I don't know. The film's directed by, you mentioned Seagal, funnily enough. The film's directed by Orson Oblowitz, who is the son of Michael Oblowitz, who did two of Steven Seagal's movies, The Foreigner and Out for a Kill, as well as, he started his career with stuff like This World and The Fireworks with Billy Zane. So, and actually he appears in, because over the end credits, it shows all the people who were in the movie. And
that was good. I did like that because it's like the Gestapo firing squad with the PAs and things like this. You know, so that was a nice little touch. Yeah.
And you know the bit at the bit in the movie within the movie where Dolph goes to this sort of, I think it might be the New York thing, and he talks to the it's post-apocalyptic, and he talks to the woman behind the bar.
Yeah.
Well, the woman behind the bar is the director's mum.
That's right. Yeah.
And stuff like that. And John Savage is in it. It's a good cast. John Savage is in there.
Really good in
Again,
this.
probably. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen John Savage have a solid role like this for quite some time. It's quite possible that he's had a few that have just sort of passed me by. I know he's very much active. It's not like he doesn't appear in stuff very often. He's all over the place, but his career goes back to Deer Hunter and all that and that sort of thing. And he's Thin Red Line. He did that, and but he's also did 90s action movies. I'm pretty sure he did Red Scorpion 2 and things like that. But yeah, I thought he was really solid, and those him and Terence Howard have a really good dynamic. Their buddies kind of brought to mind the sort of VFW kind of thing, where these old guys and they don't really care about the money. They don't really care about the fact that they're kind of they're not the most successful people in the world, but they've staked what they've got. That's what they've got.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's got his store, and he wouldn't go for anything. He's settled. That's his place, and the same with Terence Howard's character, who's the movies are his life, the theater is his life. That's he says it in the movie, like that. This is what keeps me going. It's what I get. But he's also very pragmatic. He loves movies, but he also knows it's a business, and he's very much a businessman. But it's the business that drives him, and the sort of keeping the business going, as well as entertaining people. That is his drive. I thought there's lots of really interesting nuances to the film.
Just want to mention a couple of things as well. Three things actually. First, there's another character in this called Doc, who's the new recruit, the new intern. I thought. I thought she was quite sweet, really. Looked a bit like Carrot Top, but I thought she was pretty good. There's an interesting scene where she sort of spouts off all these films, and sort of Terence Howard goes, "Those are films. We deal in movies." The difference, it's like art and entertainment kind of difference. There was that. There's a really nice scene with Terence Howard and Dolph Lundgren's characters where he's showing them all the props that he's sort of curated for this particular event, including the whole bird in it. And Dolph Lundgren's going, "Oh yeah, so the armory guy, he found this." And he's like, "What? It's real?" I thought that was That was really cool, and the bit where he gets him to repeat that monologue from the Vietnam movie that he did. You know, he's going, "Oh, it's a shame you didn't get your Oscar that year." You know, I thought that was pretty good. But the other thing, I mean, you know, there are some nice deep cuts in this film. It isn't just all sort of, you know, the more obvious stuff. Like the character, you know, we were just mentioning. God, Lucky. No, not Lucky.
Doc?
No, sorry. Burton, the other henchman, the sort of the older one.
Oh, played by John Scarloff. Sklarov, sorry.
Yeah.
Who looks a bit like David Cronenberg.
he gets, you know, I mean, a lot of his dialogue is just quotes from films. Some of them are, some of them are obvious, you know, but not all of them are obvious. Some of them, you know, there are a few sort of deep cuts in there as well, you know, which sort of would test your knowledge a little bit. So, oh, okay, yeah, nice one. I quite appreciated that.
But it's a kind of an interesting thing what they're doing there, because he's using these quotes, but he's doing it in a sort of taunting way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, sort of belittling. You know, sort of almost like, look, you can't tell. Is he a real film fan? We're not quite sure. It seems like he knows enough that he might be, but the way he's saying it is kind of like it's niggling. He's kind of trying to niggle them with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, there's loads. I mean, yeah, a lot of his lines, and yeah, he's interesting character, nice piece of work, good performance.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay, how are you going to score it?
I think it was, yeah, I think it was a pleasant surprise. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. It's not quite one thing or another. So if you're expecting a big action movie, it's not that. It's kind of comical, but it's not a comedy. But I think it's a bit of a blend of different things. Definitely a love letter to movies, not necessarily just movies, but the theatrical presentation of movies. And I think I'm going to go. Yeah, I think I'm going to go 7 on it. I think it's bordering an 8. I think, yeah, I'm going to go at 7. The cinematography is really good, by the way. Noah Rosenthal was the cinematographer, makes the film look really good. Did the short film No Overnight Parking, which we covered recently on Short Shots.
Yeah, it's one of the Ethereum ones, wasn't it?
Ethereum ones, yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely an 8 for me. I really enjoyed it. It really did surprise me. I loved the clips. Moses versus the Gestapo, whatever it's called, or the SS versus Moses.
Oh yeah. Well, that's where it's really going into the sort of parody, Tropic Thunderish kind of elements. But that was fun. Good. But I have seen films like that. There's stuff like that out there.
No, absolutely. But I just thought this worked really, really well. You know, it wasn't a case of Terence Howard, having to wait till the end of the film before he sort of like, girded his loins and came after, fought back. I mean, he starts fighting back almost immediately, which I thought was great. You know, he's not going to sort of take things lying down when those two punks turn up. And
well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't kind of does the things you expect it to do, but it does them in kind of a different order and more, unexpected development. You don't expect him to sort of throw himself into, just
absolutely
getting on with it. But I say Terence Howard, he's not just there. He's very much the lead. He's not just he doesn't just turn up for a couple of scenes or whatever. He's in it all the way through. He's completely committed to his performance. It's a really, really great performance from him, I think. We've seen him in a few things recently where he was kind of the, he was like a wrestling coach and
stuff
was
like
that
on the cop, wasn't it? Was it called The Walk or something like that? Wasn't that Terence Howard in that one?
Oh, I can't remember, but we have seen him in a few things where he was
the segregation of schools in Chicago.
Yes, that was right. Yes, I think that was The Walk. Where he's kind of more of a secondary character or a supporting character. And doesn't really. I mean, he's always good, but he didn't get to do. He doesn't really get a great performance opportunity. Range. He gets some, some nice monologues, some sort of tender moments, and some. He gets to build the proper character and make him really memorable, which I think which is quite rare. So yeah, definitely. Terence Howard. I know there's been some complications with his career and stuff. I don't know what's been going on there, but he's things kind of went off the rails a bit. But this is definitely him at his best,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, and opposite him, Dolph Lundgren did some sterling work here as well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
So there you go. That is a 7 and an 8 for Showdown at the Grand. Go check it out. Our next film is Mercy Falls. A group of friends set off into the Scottish Highlands in search of a long-lost cabin. Once far from civilization, an unforeseen tragedy befalls the group, and one bad decision leads to suspicion, betrayal, and murder. Okay, so this, like a lot of films of this kind, it takes a while to get going. And I think films like this kind of live or die by their characters and whether or not you sympathize with any of them at all. You can
Which is a problem here.
It is a bit of a problem here. We're kind of stuck for about half an hour with these very annoying people. Just all of them.
Why in movies do they always have groups of friends who clearly wouldn't be friends in real life because they're just rubbing each other up the wrong way like the whole time? It's like, why are they even going on a trip?
Why would they? Yeah,
it's like, sure. They don't seem like they like each other at all. We don't like them, and they don't like each other.
Like I mean, there's the classic setup. I mean, I was watching it at one point, going, "Oh, that's weird." There's 6 of them. It's like, one of them's the killer, right? Okay, that makes sense. So 5 plus a killer out in the wilderness. Having said that, so once this, if you manage to survive the first sort of 30 minutes or whatever it is, up until the inciting moment, things do improve immeasurably because there are some decent kills in this. We do have a decent antagonist. The protagonists are all ridiculous. There is one point where they're down to three of them, and they're still arguing with each other and at each other's throats. It's like, surely you can come to an agreement to sort of say, we got bigger issues here than he said, she said last night. We got a serious problem. They've got this bloody serial killer chasing us. But no, it's like, oh, hope I never see you again. All this sort of crap. So, oh, God's sake. So it's difficult to sort of sympathize with any of them. Even the main protagonist, our sort of final girl, it's taken her all of her life to finally go, oh, maybe my dad wasn't such an arsehole when he killed that deer or that horse and put it out of his misery. Okay, it's like, okay. But there's some, there are some nice scenes. I did like the way it was shot. It makes good use of the countryside. The ending, the build up around the cave and everything, I thought was very well done. So it does, it does have some redeeming features, but at the end of the day, we are, stuck with this very typical sort of dynamic of 5 people who, kind of don't like each other very much.
Well, the thing is, they're really unappealing and they don't like each other very much. And then this other person comes along who's quite, unlikable and a bit antagonistic towards them. And they're really desperately trying to get her to come along with them and arguing amongst themselves together. I was like, why? Why are you?
I know.
It's like she's clearly not very nice herself. So why are you like, oh yeah, you've got to come with us.
Come with us,
yeah. So a lot of unlikable people encourage somebody else who's really unlikable to join them, and
it makes it feel like a really forced situation at the end, doesn't it? It's kind of like they just brought it on themselves at the end of the day. Five sociopaths and a psychopath, go out into the wilderness.
It was bringing to mind. It's funny because I was thinking about this. It came to mind for a couple of reasons, and one, When Darkness Falls, that Tom Jolliffe wrote with Nathan Shepka. that one came to mind, and it was like, because that's a thriller set in a sort of a similar, Scottish Highlands kind of. I think it's the Highlands. But it's definitely
Scotland.
Yeah, and but it's obviously it's the falls in the title as well, different kind of meaning. But you got When Darkness Falls and Mercy Falls. When Darkness Falls is a lot better. But the Ledge as well that we watched. Do you remember the sort of unappealing bunch of guys and the guy's a bit of rapey, and the girl has to sort of fight back against them and stuff. That was a better, but it was a more high end version of this kind of tale, I thought. But there was, I thought, it is watchable, quite entertaining. There's a moment towards the end which seems very clearly modelled on the Sonny Landham takes on the Predator, or tries to take on the Predator moment.
Yeah,
where he just basically lets sends the others off and sort of stands his ground and literally doesn't stand a chance. And he it's like goes so it gets taken out. So there was a scene that was very, very closely modelled on that, which I thought must have been intentional. So it's fine. It's all right. I kind of had higher hopes for it. I think I was really looking forward to it. I think I'd heard, the PR stuff, the PR information kind of got me quite excited for it. And it's all right. But yeah, it's just those characters that really let it down. We've had that issue before with films like the what was the one set in the art school recently?
Oh, Final Term.
Final Term, yeah. End of term, I think it was. Yeah. But yeah, they sort of present these quite unappealing characters. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, going around in circles, talking about the unappealing characters. But if you can get past that, it's a solid thriller.
Yeah.
But
the thing about that end of term one though is, yes, they're unappealing for a reason, because you don't know who the killer is.
Yeah.
So you kind of guess. You're trying to guess which of them is the killer. But with this one, you know who the killer is pretty early on. And so yeah, they're just awful people. I mean, I do like the genre of survival horror, which is what this is. Sort of the idea of like being stuck in the wilderness, away from phones and all the rest of it, and civilization, and having to battle the elements as much as you're battling, some human threat, as it were. But
if you want to watch a film like this, watch the Wrong Turn remake that was done recently. That's a much better, more interesting.
Or if you're, if you don't mind subtitles, try Rovdir, which is a Norwegian one, or even Cold Prey. I mean that was a good one with much more likable characters. People who you can believe are actually on holiday together and actually enjoying each other's company and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of, we see a lot of these kind of movies, but I don't think I've seen a film with characters this ill matched. And say that quite well that must have been by design, but I just don't think it. I think works it's detrimental to the overall story, because you just can't get behind any of the characters.
But, they may have well just run off in different directions. For all the camaraderie and team spirit and all the rest of it. No, just you go that way, I'll go this way, and see who survives. That would be a more realistic scenario, given the characters. Okay. The other thing I did like, actually, I will say, is that fire stunt at the end. Especially the scream that went with it. It made it even more sort of gruesome, basically. I thought that was pretty decent. But other than that, how are you going to score it?
I think everything apart from the characters is solid. So I'm gonna say a 5.
All right, I'm actually going to go one better. I'm going to go a 6 because once it settles down and things start getting a bit gruesome, I think it makes up for itself.
I think you're right. I'm going to go for a 6 as well. I'll go for a 6.
Cool. All right, 2 6s then for Mercy Falls. Go check it out. Our next review is Evie, When young girl Evie finds a cursed necklace washed up on the seaside, she doesn't realize the evil presence connected to it. As its power takes hold of her, she unleashes a deadly water demon that wants to claim her and those she loves. Very, very slow paced, this one, and it's something I don't enjoy. Is following sort of child protagonists for big chunks of the film. So I wasn't really on board with this one too much, I have to admit. But I did like the ending, I have to say. There was a tiny, tiny touch of the more about the ending.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
When she's sort of tied up at the at the mercy of her brother, I thought that was pretty good. But yeah, it's a long haul. I mean, it's not a particularly long film as such, but I just found the pace of it and what's happening not particularly engaging. You feel any different, Rich?
I did. I think I actually really liked the sort of the pace and the atmosphere of the film quite a lot. We've got quite a long first act, which is like you say, where you're following the kids and stuff, and then we jump forward to a few years later, or several years later, I should say, and we follow the follow Evie as a young woman, and she's very again, we're sort of unappealing characters again. She's a really unappealing character at first, and it sort of takes a while for you to sort of get on board with her character. But there's lot. I'd like. I say I thought it was carried along by a really nice score. A bit repetitive, was a bit overused, but I thought it was very suited the film really well, and was very memorable. It took me along. The film was shot in Wales, and it's got some really nice locations, and
I did like the locations. I did like the coastal scenes and everything. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, old village, sort of old church and stuff. It's very. It looks great. It's shot really nicely. It's made by Dominic Brunt, who did the werewolf film that we covered a little while ago, which was hang on, what was it called again? I am terrible. Wolf Manor. That was it. Yeah. So his last film was Wolf Manor. But he's also done films like Bait and Attack of the Adult Babies, which I haven't seen. But so Wolf Manor was the only film of his that I'd actually seen, and I like that. This is slightly different. I think this one looks more polished. The Wolf Manor was sort of leaning more into sort of B movie, kind of monster movie kind of thing, whereas this is quite classy, quite a classy. I thought the Moor was a good comparison to make. To the kind of film that this is. It's not a horror film per se. I mean, it is a horror film, but horror is not the main point. There's not a lot of quote unquote horror in it. It's a lot of character stuff. It's very
until
much
you get to the end,
movie.
basically.
Until you get to the end, yeah. And it's one of those movies, but it's not too arty. I didn't think it wasn't like an art film. It was more. It was, kind of say, a thriller with a supernatural element, I would say. I enjoyed the performances. I thought, I'd say, especially the brother, who's quite, played by. Hang on, what's his name? I can't remember the characters' names now, so I'm struggling a bit to see who the character is. So Evie was. Might be. Hang on. I'm just looking. Who was Evie played? So Evie was played by. God, IMDb's been a bit useless.
It is.
So I'm gonna have to go.
Evie is Holly Dempsey.
Okay, and so I apologise. I'm not sure who her brother was played by, but say he's kind of introduced. She's been trying to get in touch with him for many years. They've been separated for a long time, taken off, in different. Living in different circumstances since a horrific event in their youth, and that there's struggles with them trying to make a connection, and she's she's quite damaged, but she doesn't realize quite how damaged he is as well. And there's some really interesting stuff there. It's very much about them really, and their relationship and sort of facing the past and what happened and all that sort of stuff, trauma. But yeah, I thought the sort of the build of the more the horror stuff worked quite nicely, and then there's reveals and stuff, and there's little hints peppered throughout the film and stuff. It's not anything you haven't seen before, like it's hard to be original when everything has pretty much been explored. But I thought it was really, really well done, really interesting. Certainly exceeded my expectations. I think it played at Fright Fest, and I presume it probably went down quite well there. I think it played 2022 or 2021, was it? I can't remember. But yeah, so definitely, I would definitely say it was worth seeing if you like a sort of a slow burn horror film rather than a Blumhouse kind of horror film.
Yeah, there are attempts at a few jump scares early on.
Oh yeah, there are. Yeah,
there's we see something within the rocks when she finds the necklace, and there's another stupid bit where it's a typical thing, and where the character doesn't see it, but the audience does. Something jumps across the camera lens or something.
Well, that's kind of that's where a lot of this stuff was kind of being introduced, and then I was kind of waiting for something to happen with that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, at least not on screen.
No.
So you don't really get any real payoff until the end.
And exactly, yeah.
So it's very much sort of introduces some stuff and then sort of goes off and does other things. I should say it's Dominic Brunt, but he directed it with Jamie Lundy. So he was the co-director on the film, who's not got as many credits as Dominic Brunt, but I thought they clearly worked together quite well on this. I think they wrote it together as well. I think I really liked it more than Evie. We've got I think we've been talking about we've had a Scottish film, and this is at least a shot in Wales film. I don't know whether it's supposed to be set in Wales, but it was definitely shot there, and we're going to be talking about another British film in a little while.
Absolutely.
And I think this was probably the standout one for me, one I would potentially go back to in the future.
All right, and on that note then, Rich, how are you going to score it?
I'm going to give this one a high 7, I think.
All right, well, I'm dropping to a 6 for this one. It was, it didn't quite grab me the way I'd hoped. And I just have a thing about horror movies with child protagonists. It just, I don't know, just rubs me up the wrong way. Having said that, I thought the ending, sort of the evilness of it, I thought was spot on. And I did like the moment when she's kind of confronted. We've seen flashbacks as to sort of her version of what happened when they were kids, and the tragedy that befell her parents. But then we finally see the truth of it. And okay, yes, she's influenced by the medallion thing that she's wearing and things like that. But it goes even further, which I quite liked. So yeah, a 6 and a 7 then for Evie. Go check it out. Our next film then is Werewolf Santa. Lucy has a show called Monster Hunters on YouTube, but it's not doing too great with just a few viewers following her. That is until on Christmas Eve, her camera witnesses Santa getting bit by a werewolf in the local park before turning into a werewolf himself. Okay. I really don't know where I sit with this one, Rich, I have to say. It's clearly low budget, and I can't really sort of hold the fact that it's low budget against it. There's just, that's just circumstance, really. It's a question of what they try to do with it. And okay, I kind of like the characters for once. out of the films we've seen, the two films we've just been talking about. There were a couple of interesting lines in this, I have to say. But I don't know, it all just seemed a bit overly light. It's like, there's all these murders and sort of things going on, and these people getting killed by the werewolves and that, and it's like no emotion or anything. I mean, she sees somebody get killed in front of her, and her first reaction is just to walk past the body into the woods to sort of try and find out what killed him. Not even like, oh, call the police or anything like that. It's just any sort of reaction. And for a lot of the film, we get it's this sort of inter-family bickering kind of thing going on, which there are some some nice dialogue and that, but and the video effects. I'm not going to sort of comment on the werewolf costume or anything like that, but it's just like the video effects of like, oh, the batteries run out, so it got this fuzzy screen and all that sort of stuff. It was just like going on for far too long. So I don't know. I'm very ambivalent towards this one. How about yourself?
Well, you go into a film that's called Werewolf Santa with a certain expectation or low expectations or something, and I think for what it is, I thought it was pretty decent. I can't. It's another British film with, fair to say, of the three British films we've covered this week, with an unappealing female lead. I think of the three unappealing female leads, she's the most engaging. Probably I think that again is the script. Some fun. There is some sort of quite decent lines and stuff in there. We've also got Emily Booth in there playing. So that's it's Catherine Rodden as Lucy, but we've got Emily Booth, sort of British horror movie, princess from the 90s and noughties, as her mother.
Voice of Joe Bob Briggs as well.
Yeah, which is random because it's kind of Joe Bob Briggs is such an American association that it just seems weird to have him and his name mentioned in a British film. So when it starts, he's basically narrating The Night Before Christmas, and it says Joe Bob Briggs introduces Werewolf Santa, and I was like, oh, maybe it's not a British film. Maybe this is a micro, because it's micro budget movie. Is it a micro budget American film, not a British one? But no, it is. They start talking about Hastings and stuff, which
set in Hastings.
Which I don't know. I go to Hastings every now and again, and I've never heard anything about a werewolf legend. So whether there is or not, I don't know. But one thing I'm really not sure about is whether they actually filmed in Hastings, which made me wonder why Hastings then, because they do this thing where they drive into a housing area, clearly just like a regular road, and there's a sign there saying Hastings, which is like
as you do, mate.
Which is not the way any signage works when you're going into a major town or anything. So it wasn't shot near any landmarks or anything. It was literally could have been anywhere, and it probably wasn't anywhere, because they sort of start out saying, "Oh, now we're in." We've gone to.
It was a very quick transition from a caption saying in 1776, there was pirates and smugglers and all the rest of it in Hastings, and then that's it, and then it just jumps straight into into the present day sort of thing. It's like,
I'm not sure about the captions. I don't know how I feel about those, but the stuff about the smuggling and everything about Hastings, that is absolutely true.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just the werewolf legends. I'm just not sure about. But anyway, that aside, so the setting of it is kind of almost moot. I don't know why they made such a big thing about it, unless there really is a legend. But the context, the sort of family arguments, the whole. Not found footage, but the whole we're going to video. Well, essentially, it's what we call the found footage, isn't it? Yeah. It's like the Cloverfield kind of thing of somebody's going to hold the video camera the whole time, no matter what's happening.
Or Chad gets the axe kind of scenario, isn't it?
Yes, there is a little bit of that in here. It's a kind of a combination, kind of a midpoint between the two, I would say. I I don't think that's done too badly. I think that's that's fine. I kind of go with it, and I think so within the limitations, and sort of putting aside the sort of rough things with the title cards and stuff like that. I thought it actually was pretty solid, and the Werewolf Santa costume, the kind of stuff was fun. Practical. There was no sort of, not that I recall, any sort of naff CGI in here at all. Everything was on screen.
Effects, yeah.
So I quite like. So I like that. That earned a lot of points. I thought the cast was quite interesting, and there was stuff going on. It's completely ridiculous, obviously, and it's only an hour and 10 minutes long, so not the most engaging film I've watched, but better than I kind of thought it was going to be, and actually quite entertaining and really surprised me. In another, it's a bit more than I think it's kind of very sort of trashy title, but I think it's more of a accessible movie than the kind of the title would make you think. It makes you, the title makes it seem like it's going to be really naff, really rubbish, and I don't think it is. I think it's quite a solid movie.
So me and Steve reviewed Red Tide Massacre last week.
Yes.
And we were quite derisive about it, and I'm sort of having to compare this to that. Okay. I think this works better within its limitations than Red Tide Massacre. I think there was. It's missing a certain level of sort of emotional depth, is what it is. Everything is too breezy,
it feels like it also feels like there's bits missing, because there's
that's the captions, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not just that, but it's like between. I had to reverse and see, because there was like a dialogue scene happening. I think it's between like Lucy and her dad, and they're having a sort of conversation about one thing, and then all of a sudden they're doing this like big reveal, and I was like, hang on a minute, how did they get from that to there? It was like, I must have missed something, and I went back and I was just like, no, they've done that jump. They've done a jump there.
It was a bit early on as well, I think, similar, where you just think, hang on, how did he get from that point to this point? It's just like very, very strange.
So whether that was the script being cut down or something, I don't know, but it was quite jarring. So that lost the point, because if I'm engaged, but then I feel like I've lost something, but I haven't actually. It's and then I'm going back to check and not able to find what I'm looking for. Then I think that's a problem. But I think the sort of breeziness of it was fine. I quite like the fun. The director, was it Errol Anthony Hales, is apparently doing a Vampire Santa next. I don't think we need a whole load of these, but
I got a feeling that'll work better, because you're not so reliant on makeup effects and stuff. I think that might end up being better than this.
I don't know, mate. I didn't mind. I thought the makeup and stuff was okay, really, on this. I don't know. I didn't have a problem.
Well, no, I found the werewolf to be too stiff and unengaging and unfrightening.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I'd say it's difficult with on
a budget,
costumes on a low budget and
Absolutely.
whatever.
I did say I wasn't going to mention it as well, so that's right. Okay.
Nice. I think seeing Emily Booth back in a movie is always a good thing. So I'd watch it. I think it's worth watching to see her. She's fun. She's always been good value. Also interesting to see her playing a kind of the mother character. So which really that's quite makes you feel a bit old, really. It's like how times have changed. She was sort of running around being the wild one kind of thing, and now she's the mother, but she's still a bit. They still add some edge to her character.
Was she in was it Razorblade Smile? Was that one?
That was Eileen Daly. She was in Perverella, I think it was.
Oh, right, Perverella, that was it.
and a whole bunch of other stuff she's done over the years. The Evil Aliens.
Oh
she
yeah,
used
that's
to
a
work
good
with,
one. Yeah,
and stuff
that
like
was by
that.
the same people who did Doghouse.
Yes, she was in Doghouse as well.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure how big her role was in because I didn't actually see that one.
That's a good one. Yeah,
But
one of Danny Dyer's better
she's
films.
she's yeah. So she was Pervarella was kind of a big break. Emily Buffon was her name.
All right.
At that time, her sort of stage name, and then she did stuff like Cradle of Fear.
Oh,
remember Cradle of Filth?
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, and then there was the Cradle of Fear film, and say the Evil Eight. Jake. I think it was Jake West.
Yeah, I said Jake.
Jake West, who she used to work with quite a few times, I think. So I think there's reasons to watch this. It's not a bad movie. It's quite entertaining for what it is. It's definitely aiming. It's not. I mean, the whole thing with the title, kind of where you stand. It's aiming for the beer and pizza crowd. The whole Joe Bob Briggs thing. They're really just sort of. They're not trying to sell it as something. It's not like Snakes on a Plane, which kind of says Snakes on a Plane and then tries to be something else, and it just doesn't work. This is kind of, what you're going to get, and it's actually pretty well done.
And on that note, scores?
I'm going to give this a 6.
I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. As I said, I'm relatively ambivalent, but you've kind of convinced me to give it a 6. So there you go. 2 6s for Werewolf Santa. Go check it out. Our next film is Muzzle. After his canine partner is killed in Skid Row, police officer Jake Rosser plummets deep into a sinister underworld to uncover the truth about who may be responsible. I thoroughly enjoy this one, Rich. It's a very solid police procedural starring Aaron Eckhart as our main character, Jake Rosser. We have this great scene at the beginning where he's part of an attempted arrest of a suspect who's fled his car and gone down this alley where there's like loads of vagrants and things. And unfortunately, his dog gets killed in action. Well, I think he actually dies of an overdose. I think because there's so many drugs and things in the alley. I think he dies of a heart attack brought on by a heroin overdose. And it's kind, his sort of mission, his personal mission to sort of find out who did it. There's a bit of mystery going on as well, and a bit of romance with one of his neighbors. I just thought this was very, very solid. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was expecting more of an action movie than it actually ended up being. I'd say it's 80% drama. Mm-hmm. There's it's all sort of him dealing with it's him dealing with the grief of losing his partner, which in this case is the dog, and trying to establish a relationship with a new partner.
Because what comes across is that he is a very sort of isolated person, isn't he? I mean, at the beginning we see him literally talking to his dog, his partner, who sat in the front seat with him. Except he's a dog, and he's telling all these sort of theories about sort of wordplay and all this sort of stuff. It's very interesting, and even when he's sort of speaking to the therapist and things like that, he likes the sound of his own voice, or he's used to the sound of his own voice, which I thought was it's quite an interesting sort of character for him to play.
Yeah, Aaron Eckhart's really good. I mean, he's a solid actor. He's definitely gone in this to sort of do a character, and he's a tough guy, and he's at times very quite unlikable. He's not out to make friends. He's quite mean to people at times, but he's on a mission to find out what was happening, and that's where kind of the film kind of goes in different directions. So it sort of leans into this drama of him sort of trying to get over and past what's happened, and also grow as develop as a character. But then we've also got the thriller element, which kind of comes into play in little peppered bits, and the end they kind of do the getting tooled up, going in for the big action scene kind of stuff. But they add in all this. It becomes like this conspiracy level kind of thing, which I thought was a bit too much.
There's
It's
an
like
interesting,
goes
it's
a
an
bit heavy.
interesting element in that, because he's caught on camera, sort of like hitting somebody and things like that, and there's all calls about police brutality, and his superiors are very quick to kind of disown him or sort of point the blame at him. What's going on? It's like, road cop or whatever. You got to go see a therapist and all this sort of stuff. Very, very quick to sort of do that, and that sort of feels, a bit of a sort of political touchstone. Very interesting sort of element to the film, I thought.
Yeah, I say it's shot really well. We got Stephen Lang in there. He's probably the only really sort of majorly recognisable other member of the cast, but he kind of he dominates a couple of scenes, but then he kind of disappears. Yeah. He's very much a sort of
he's fulfilling a role. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense for him to turn up again, if you see what I mean.
But there's a whole kind of training scene that's they're trying to get him to connect with the dog, and he's it's not that the dog is not trained or anything. It's just you've got to look for what is the trigger, what is the thing that you need to sort of click with the dog. I thought the stuff about the dogs being instructed in German was really interesting, and then the whole thing about when they go on that mission at the beginning, somebody else is giving the dog commands, so they know it's kind of somebody who's either on the inside or works with dogs. So that's kind of his big clue that is that he's following. But the whole German thing, and that's completely true. I looked that up, and because a lot of them are German Shepherds from Germany, they are trained, initially trained
to respond in German.
Because I was wondering when I was watching it, have they used a different language so that it's not,
I think that's part of it as well.
Somebody can't accidentally trigger them because it's a word that they're not likely to encounter.
Or trying to call them off and stuff like that, sort of trying to get them to stop. It's like, no, they're not going to listen to you unless you sort of speaking a certain language. The TV series Person of Interest used that as well quite early on, where these bad guys they'd basically stolen a guard dog or something. And this sort of Jim Caviezel's character going, "No, you're not speaking to it properly. It knows Belgian in that particular scenario," which I thought was quite good. So I did like that little element. I must admit.
Now, really there's a bit that really confused me, and I don't know. There was another police officer who they were really antagonistic.
They seemed to have this sort of really antagonistic relationship, but then
it seemed like they did a team up. Yeah. Was it the same guy?
It was the same guy.
Because I just didn't follow that. It was all like all of a sudden it's him and the other guy's got this massive gun. I
think because it was like because of what had happened to him and his partner. And it's like, no, man, that was like, that's your partner sort of thing. We've got to try and help him. So I think it was a case of, putting personal issues aside, and doing the right thing, as it were.
I thought it was quite interesting how seriously they took the relationship between the canine officer and his dog. And the dog gets like a proper
burial,
burial, proper funeral, and everything, with a gun salute and everything. So the film is, to a degree, paying quite a strong tribute to canine police officers, and saying, these are real. They're really doing the job, and they're doing a good job, and it's not sort of making light of it. They're not trying to, because it could have been. Because when I initially started the film, or was approaching the film, it seemed like, is this going to be another? Is this canine?
Is it Jim Belushi sort of thing?
Is it the Jim Belushi kind of canine kind of thing? Which is how dog cop movies have always been, for the most part. I don't think anyone's ever done one that's like completely straight. I might be completely wrong on that. There's probably a few out there, but this one is very serious. and not in a sort of, it doesn't play it for parody or anything. It's like, no, this, people really love their dogs, and in this case, it's no different between this guy and his dog. He really loves this dog. It's like his brother, and he wants to find out why he lost his brother, and when he meets this other dog, who messed them up, because this other dog's had a lot of issues and stuff, and I think that they play that really, really well, and it works. It really does work. I just think the film's a bit schizophrenic in the sort of, we've got to try and make it a big action movie-ish kind of, there's got to be stuff for the trailer, and we've got to add in this, sort of almost cartoonish level of conspiracy, almost like something from a 1980s action movie, really, where they would sort of reveal, there's this big cover up, or even stuff like like exit wounds, where it turns out the cops are all corrupt and they're actually smuggling drugs in t-shirts, whatever it is.
What I was trying to get to.
Or that Burt Reynolds movie where I think it's Malone, where there's it's kind of a standard sort of westernish kind of movie setup, but then there's this whole thing with like a national conspiracy being undertaken, and here it's like it's sort of a midway point with that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to earlier when I was mentioning about the cops being very, very quick to sort of like, say, you're talking crap. I mean, it was quite funny that, there's a scene, one of the set pieces in the film is where he comes across this house in sort of Beverly Hills, which is being used as a meth lab, basically. It's this really nice estate. And they're basically just using it as a meth lab, and he busts it. And they're like, the brass are really upset that you busted this meth lab in the middle of Beverly Hills, sort of thing. It's like, well, what was I supposed to do? That's the thing. I just want to mention a book, actually. I'm trying to find, while we're talking, I'm trying to find the, what it's actually called. But it's by a guy called Robert Craze. Who's really good sort of series of books featuring a private eye called Elvis Cole. But he did a book about a police officer who loses his partner and ends up becoming a dog handler, and the dog is an ex-military dog from he got injured in Iraq. And it's a really, really good book, and it's sort of, it's taken from both of their points of view. So some of it's from the dog's point of view, some of it's from the other guy.
Suspect. I've getting one called Suspect. Scott James and Maggie the dog, I think.
Yeah, that could be it. But yeah, really, really enjoyed it. And
I will say there was another dog. I was talking about serious dog movies or whatever. There was one called I haven't seen it, but there was the one, I think it was released as Rex. It was originally called Megan Levy.
Oh yeah.
Which was the soldier with her dog.
Yep.
And I can't remember if that does similar stuff to this because I never saw it. But so I think there are more serious. There are other serious dog movies. But I think if you want to, a thriller with a bit of action and say you like the dog stuff, you like dogs. I think this has got a lot of stuff to recommend.
I thought it was really good. And on that note, I am giving this a 7 out of 10.
I will join you on a 7.
Awesome. 2 7s for Muzzle. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Unleashed. A vicious fighter called Danny the dog is forced to wear an explosive collar by his owner and sees an opportunity for freedom when he becomes the center of a power struggle between the organizers of underground fights. So a fan film, Rich, based on the Jet Li film Unleashed, also known as Danny the Dog.
Yes.
Which also starred not only Bob Hoskins, but Scott Adkins. And I really need to see that again. I think it's been ages since I've seen it.
I watched it last year. It really stands up. I think it's one of Jet Li's best.
This is excellent. Everything about this short is first rate. The setup is great. The guy they've got playing Danny is absolutely superb. The fight choreography and design it's got some amazing elements in there. A lot of how the hell did they pull that off kind of stuff. One of the things I like about sort of modern choreography is this sort of use of like leg locks and things like that. Sort of knocking people's knees. All of that. I think all of that stuff looks great. It's very cinematic, and they do a great job of sort of showcasing the stunt actors in this.
Yeah, and it's very much kind of a group effort from a number of stunt professionals and choreographers and whatnot. Directed by Luis Valadares, who's worked on films like Tomorrow War, Black Adam, Project Power, all sorts of stuff. And the lead, the guy who's playing Danny, is Mark Canonizado, who's not someone I was familiar with before. I think this is probably quite possibly his first leading role that he's had in anything. I know he's a stunt player. I think he does some tricking, but yeah, I've not really seen him at all before. I thought he was great.
Yeah.
The choreography was kind of the action design was by Luis Valadares as well, but the stunt coordinator was Tony Falcon, who's done films like The Avengers, I think like Infinity War or something. It does, I think, look really good, and it feels like I don't think it's unreasonable to say that it would feel like the TV adaptation of Unleashed, like almost like this is the 15-minute sneak peek of what the first season of Unleashed, the series, would be, if you see what I mean. It's kind of, it definitely has a high-end TV production values, I would say. We're not saying, it doesn't look like a big budget movie because it's not got a lot of money. It's a shot in a warehouse kind of film, but they've got quite a few extras and stuff, and the cinematography is really solid. And say it's that choreography and the editing, the action design, and that is really first rate. As you were saying, there's some fantastic moves. There's like a bit where he's sort of on his side and he jumps jumps almost like impossibly into the air to sort of kick somebody, even though he's kind of almost laying down. There's some really, really cool stuff. It is a fight short essentially, but it's kind of got this big centerpiece, and then it kind of leads to it's kind of a top and tail of the confrontation between
like
basically the
crazy version of the actual film, quite nicely.
Yeah, and we've got the Danny's handler, and who was originally played by Bob Hoskins, and he's sort of antagonistic with this fight club or whatever owner, and while the fight's happening, the handler is taken off, and then it leads into the next scene, which is shot very differently. It sort of turns from the sort of warmth of the of the fight environment, it becomes very cold and sort of bluey. And you think, oh, that's the dialogue scene that's kind of end the movie, but no, it doesn't. And you get another big action scene sort of kick off there. So we get two really good fight scenes out of this. Good performances, good tribute. I hope it'd be great if this actually went to something else. But I presume it won't. Partly because it's a fan film. It's not been licensed or anything. It's not been proof. You could argue it as maybe it's a proof of concept for a potential TV show, but I don't think that's necessarily what they had in mind. I think it's just them doing a love letter to it. But yeah, really great. 15 minutes well spent.
Absolutely. We don't score the shorts, but we certainly recommend you go check them out, and you'll find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Hellraiser Bloodline. In the 22nd century, the descendant of the creator of the Lament configuration puzzle box sets in motion an attempt to destroy Pinhead and his minions once and for all. I think this was it was quite maligned when it came out. It didn't have very good word of mouth. No. It's very telling that it's director Kevin Yeager took his name off this and replaced it with Alan Smithy, for one thing. And I must admit, this is the first time I've actually seen it, and I actually for the most part, quite liked it. You know, we saw a couple of other of the sort of more recent Hellraiser films a while ago. We did a twofer. This certainly has a much bigger budget than either of those could ever hope for.
Yeah.
Probably even combined, it's probably got much bigger budget. I like the space stuff. I thought you know, it is very obvious what is going on with the space station. As soon as you see it, you know exactly what's going to happen to it. You know, the way it's been designed and everything, that was pretty obvious. We get two sort of extended flashback scenes. I mean, I think people sort of like compared this to like an anthology almost.
Yes.
Although it's, you know, it is very much a through line, a bloodline even.
Yes.
You know, with the same characters involved throughout, or the same actors playing different versions of, you know, different eras of their character. I thought, you know, the design of it was very good. The production design was good. Some good sort of proper decent prosthetics and effects going on. Some of the designs, like the two security guards, what happened to them? I thought that was really impressive and grotesque. Thought really like that. The one thing I didn't like, and this is something which applies to just about all prequels, is the seeming need to over-explain everything. It's like, oh, so that's where the chains came from. The chains were the hooks. You know, it's not Pinhead's idea. It was this Marquis de Sade kind of character's thing, and they just utilized it and exploited it. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. You know, just let it be their thing. You don't have to explain it to, you know. It always annoys me when they do that. So somebody quite succinctly put it to me. You know, it's like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and he's sitting there watching. And he goes, "Oh, so that's how he got his whip and his hat." It's like, yeah, we don't really need to know. Big thing, you know, and not everything has to have this big story behind it. But other than that sort of element, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was pretty grotesque in keeping with, especially the second one, you know, Hellbound. So yeah, this was solid for me. How about you?
Yeah, I think it was kind of, it is a mess. It was, you know, greeted as, you know, as a bit of a mess when it came out, because, you know, it didn't really satisfy the fans of the pure Hellraiser movies, the first two, and it didn't. It was the second one that the Weinsteins were involved in, and the third one done by Anthony Hickox, which is my favorite, but is very tonally not in keeping with the first two. It's a much more mainstream, bombastic kind of, you know, set piece driven film, and this one sort of takes it, sort of tries to do a little bit of that with the sci-fi and every elements and stuff, but it's more pulling it back to trying to make it a bit more of a down to earth kind of horror story rather. And I think that's why one of the reasons it didn't quite work for people, as well as the fact that it was sort of chopped to bits, and some of it just didn't quite make sense and work. But I think over time, and if you know, approaching it sort of with the benefit of hindsight after all these other Hellraiser sequels and stuff, and you know,
having
sort
watched
of thinking
it after
about
after what was it, Legacy and whatever the other one was called, yeah, it certainly favors being watched after those two.
You know, you've got Doug Bradley. You know, he's got some, you know, as Pinhead, as it should be. You know, say this was the last theatrically released one, direct to video here in the UK, but the level of quality is there. I think the thing was, the end of the third one ended with the shot of the building in the design of the element configuration, and this film didn't really have the budget to pick up on that, or at least not to a great extent. So you see it a little bit. It's actually more visible in work print version. Now this has come out. This is part of the new Hellraiser quartet release, which is like on 4K and Blu-ray. And so this is so Hellraiser Bloodline is getting a proper release for like the first time, really. And it's got all these extras and commentary and stuff, which is really, really interesting. And the work print is quite fascinating to sort of see a bit more about what they were trying to go for and the structure of the film that was originally supposed to have, not this interview kind of setup where they go into space at the very start of the film. It was, the work print version that I saw.
Oh, do they save all that for the end? Are they?
Exactly. That's how it was originally supposed to go. It starts in the past, goes to the present, then goes to the future. And I felt that when I watched the work print version, as interesting as I like it, it kind of felt like it peaked at the end of the present day stuff, and then it turned, and then you were basically watching a different film. It didn't quite kind of connect in that sense. But I think this version, the theatrically released version, does work in that sense of that it kind of keeps everything together a bit better. What they've done is they shot some extra sort of interview scenes and whatever to bridge it and add in the sort of elements, which was there was a Steven Seagal film called Attack Force, which was a complete mess, and they tried to sort of change that film by shooting some interview scenes where they do massive exposition or whatever to try and get around some of the issues they were having. I think it's really, really, really good actually. I like what they were trying to do with it, and I think the whole bit at the end with the space station and what happens with it, I didn't, because I saw it when I was young, I didn't think about it too much, and I didn't see what was coming, so I thought that was quite good. And when you think about it, of like, this was what they were intending to do, was do a combination prequel sequel and basically end the franchise. They were capping it off. Basically every film that's come after this is set before the space stuff, so this is still effectively the end of the story. So that does work quite well. And Valentine Vargas is fantastic as the sort of lead, the second antagonist. She's kind of the main antagonist really for most of a lot of the film. She's introduced at the beginning, and then she appears in the present day. All that stuff's really good. Adam Scott appears in the first part of the film, and he looks basically exactly the same as he does now, which is really, really weird. He's like, he hasn't really aged, so it's quite interesting to see him in there. The brothers that you were talking about, the brothers who become Cenobites, they're actually film. Do you remember we did the film Terror on the Prairie?
Yes.
With Gina Carano. Well, one of those guys is Michael Polish, who directed that film and has directed several others. I think they're both directors, and together and separately they've worked on a number of projects. But yeah, that's quite a novel thing. I think they didn't really. I don't know why they, whether they were acting for very long, but they were quite fun, because there's funny sort of interplay with them when their characters, when they're searching down the corridors and they're talking to each other. There's some banter going on, which I thought was quite fun. The work print has some features that would have been quite interesting to have been incorporated into this. They sort of cut out a lot of stuff. So I would definitely say, if you're interested in the Hellraiser series, seeking this sort of special edition out and watching those extra features, including the audio commentary with Kim Newman and writer Peter Atkins, is really interesting. Peter Atkins' original script is also available to buy. I'd be really interested to read that, of what the concept originally was, because basically what was the story? It was always going to be past, present, future, and that was all signed off by the Weinsteins. And then when they started to make it, they said, "Hang on, what are you doing?" And they started to meddle, very seriously in it. Laser guns in a Hellraiser movie. I'm not sure about that. it's like proper pew pew kind of laser guns, and very much modelled on Aliens. It seemed a bit too much so, perhaps. I really like the stuff with the robot although there's some dodgy CGI there.
I did like the bit at the beginning when
Yeah.
well, in this version where he uses the robot to open the box. I thought that was a class little move.
Yeah,
You know.
I think all that works really nicely. There's a lot. I think there's a lot to recommend this to give it a sort of a reappraisal after whatever 1996 it was originally released. I think
It's aged well. Yeah, it has certainly aged well.
Yeah, and I think it's got a lot to recommend it that sort of sits well with the franchise now, especially say with where it ultimately ended up. It looks a lot better by contrast to some of that stuff. Say Hellraiser 3 is still the one for me, but it's not the awful abomination kind of that people think, and it's So you've never seen it before. You quite enjoyed it.
I did. So. Yeah. I mean, I'd only seen the original trilogy, as it were, and then the two that we saw later on about the two guys trying to get out of what they did in.
I think it was Revelations and Judgments. The two we covered.
They were good. The
ones without Doug Bradley, basically. The two without Doug Bradley. Yeah. Apart from obviously there's been the new one, the new remake, which I still haven't seen. Obviously without Doug Bradley.
I do really want to see that as well. Anyway, okay. We don't score the throwbacks, but we certainly recommend you check them out. As Rich has been intimating, Hellraiser Bloodlines is now available in a box set with the. Is it called the Quadrilogy or something? Or
it's the Quartet of Torment. It's from Arrow Video.
Arrow, yeah. So all nicely remastered, across the board. I must admit, I'd like to get hold of a copy because I'd like to see. I saw Hellbound reasonably recently, probably about 2 years ago. But I'd certainly like to revisit Hell on Earth, the third one. That'd be really cool. Other than that, cheers, Rich, for watching these films. I thought we had a decent selection for once, compared to last week, especially. Top and tailed with Muzzle and Showdown at the Grand. Evie, Mercy Falls, even Werewolf Santa had its merits. So yeah, a decent selection for people to go and check out. Keep an eye out for. Other than that, check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also at the Short Shots, where we put a link to a new short every evening around about 8 o'clock. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.